Hey, how you doing? You're like, what are you doing with that grapefruit? Well, I'm gonna eat it later because I love pink grapefruit. Pink grapefruit, not regular grapefruit, which is too acidic for me. Yeah. You want a deeply esoteric video? I've got it for you tonight. There's not another video on YouTube that will be covering what I'm covering. You seem to like that. I love actually discussing such subjects. When I said I was like deathly sick the other day, I was on live stream 2 days ago, and this is embarrassing. I shouldn't admit to this, but I was in live stream, of course, and I hadn't slept for days, and I was just deathly sick, and I'm like 75% recovered. I passed out in live stream. No, I don't drink anything or do anything. I was just literally that sick and that completely exhausted. You're like, why'd you do it? It's like, well, because I have an obligation to show up on live stream because people were expecting me to show up there. And my buddy in Australia called me on the phone. I was like this, and, it woke me up. And people were wondering whether I was alive or not. And I counted at least 4 times. Some people said 5. That I was like, oh my God, I really am. I shouldn't have come on live stream, but true story. I promise you that tomorrow when I do a live stream, that actually won't be happening. I promise you. I actually got sent an email. I get a lot of emails like this. Guy had pictures. I'm not going to show you the pictures because they're copyrighted pictures, obviously. He said a bunch of things started jumping off and falling from the shelves in other places, and he works in a store selling bakery and breakfast products. 5 things that day jumped off. A jar of jam broke. A cookie jumped from the countertop. Many things. He also said, and this is usually the case, he said there's a lot of negative tone in the workplace, people leaving. There's a lot of tension. And the metaphysics and the rationality and the logic behind these things is actually hyper-rational, but nobody ever discusses these things. But I'm actually going to talk about thwarting evil. I'm going to talk about a super evil app. I'm not going to mention the application for obvious reasons. It's super evil. I'm going to tell you why it's evil, and super heretical, actually. And something else they're selling on Amazon. But it's a roundabout discussion by mentioning this app and this product and talking about thwarting and overcoming evil. And everything is hyperlogical and true, monistic, metaphysics. It doesn't matter if it's Neoplatonic, Platonic, Pythagorean, and all of that is the exact same thing. There's not a degree of difference between Pythagorean, Platonic, and Neoplatonic. There's not. Nothing is known except through the modality of the knower. It is all monistic metaphysics, fundamentally, too. But I told this guy in the email, I said, your workplace, of course, is feeding these entities. They actually love it. Anger actually begets it as well, like when people get angry at these entities for disturbing the peace and calm of their business or their home. They're actually feeding these entities. And the metaphysics of all of this is hyper-rational and hyper-logical. Simplex constructive interference and destructive interference. Examples of constructive interference are actually feeding the evil. These things that want to be paid attention to. And just like little children, there's an old saying that children should be seen but not heard. In this case, you can't actually see them 9 times out of 10. Actually, 99 times out of 100, you can't see them. Fear, anger, focus, summoning. I've made a video that was extremely popular. It's called Black Mirrors. It was talking about black mirrors and scrying devices like our computer screens, our iPads, iPhones. All of these things are actually black mirrors, and there's a whole lot of danger on there. Not just in the content, but I'm talking about the actual use of them. And everybody's zombified everywhere you go now. Everybody's peering deeply into the black mirror device, and they're actually scrying and summoning, which is bad in more ways than one. But there's actually a collective feeding of evil. There's actually a true metaphysics and a rationality behind rising evil in the world, and that people are collectively feeding this evil. The fear, anger, and focus and the summoning. Examples of destructive interference, when you're actually met with disturbance or agitation. Peace, love, ignoring. These are all rest modalities of metaphysics relative to our spirit. Not only existential consciousness, but transcendent nous or mind. or Spiritus Sancto. Unfortunately, in English, there's no distinction between mind, brain, and consciousness. If I sound like I'm jammed up in my nasal cavity, this is true. Like I said, I'm recovering from extreme sickness and allergy interaction, and just really run down. I hadn't slept for days. When waves meet calm, and I'm not talking about throwing a rock in to calm waters, but creating a wave front with that on calm waters, the actual disturbance itself is calmed. When waves meet other waves, and of course waves of what? Obviously we're talking about waters, but we're talking about spirit here. When waves meet other waves, they're actually fed and amplified in the form of constructive interference. This is what evil wants. It wants the destruction of everything that is beautiful and pure in this world. It wants agitation. Everything that is beautiful and pure is at greater harmony with that which is at rest, or the nave of the wheel. Or, and I'm not going to mention the application's name, but the application's name in Greek would be koilos, which means specifically concave or empty, kind of like at the center of this little grapefruit here, where, you know, everything sprang from this little hollow center. Same as an apple, which is hollow in the center, and I kind of use the apple seeds as an example of rest. It's not a perfect analogy, but it's a near perfect analogy. Heaven, for example, whatever you think heaven is, Nibbana, heaven, is rest. Hell, by definition, is perpetual agitation. And entities, and there's a difference between evil and doing evil, and that which is demonic, which is knowing the difference between the two and praising and giving praise to evil. That which is furthest from the center is at greatest agitation and at the lowest form of rest state. Hell, once again, of course, is perpetual agitation. Same is true of the nave of a wheel. Nave of a wheel, no different than this grapefruit, of course, is rest at the center. The further out you go, the greater agitation, the more energy required to actually feed it, kind of like feeding this virtual fire here, which is not a real fire. The ancient texts of both the Rig Veda, Samaveda, Thurveda, the Nikayas, Upatis Sahasraya, the Vivachunamuni, Principle Upanishads, they all say the exact same thing in a few different ways. I'll mention a couple of them here. One is Bhav Nirodha Nabandham, which means the subjugation of Nirodha, of becoming or perturbation, means rest, or Nabandha. Nabandha, of course, is either Nyavriti, which is actually what it means, not Nisbandha, which means from bondage, which of course Nabandha is, but Nyavriti. Nyavriti means the stopping of perturbations or becoming. Or Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha means the goal or fruit, end goal of yoga, i.e. rest or transcendence, is Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means subjugation of the perturbation. Vritti means perturbation, agitation, no different than frequency of the nous or the mind or the spiritus sanctum. Take your pick, Greek, English, Latin, I don't care what word you use. That's a transcendent principle of pure subjectivity, which is antecedent to and above that of the psychophysical body. Everything in the future is, if assuming humanity doesn't destroy itself, which it probably will, is will be about, you know, a more perfected. There's been a few movies about that. There's never going to be a utopia, even if people live to be 200 years old and have, you know, no need of money or possessions or worrying about paying bills anymore. There's still going to be perpetual agitation because it's the nature of the beast, unfortunately. Everything is going to be about sympathetic resonance. Health, peace, happiness, everything that is pure and good in this world, antecedent to this world, both prior and after and above, all revolves around sympathetic resonance. I mean, I'm no one to talk. I know I'm fat and out of shape. I generally eat healthy. I just eat too much and don't get enough exercise. The reason why everybody is just so suffering and so ill and mentally askew is because everybody's worshiping a black mirror and we're all eating things that are destructive interference to the health and the harmony of the sympathetic resonance of our body. Someone told me in a brilliant saying I've never heard before is that if it didn't exist 150 years ago, we probably shouldn't be eating it. That's a really wise thing. Let me get onto this app. I don't want to mention this app for many salient reasons. You probably find out in the comments which application I'm talking about, which is available for iPhone and Android and on and on and on. Do you know they actually featured this app on the Super Bowl? And Super Bowl commercials, I don't know if you know this or not, blatantly obvious, are extremely expensive. It's assumed they paid over $6 or $7 or $8 million for this Super Bowl ad, for this application, where you could pray. You just download this app, and of course, I'm going to give you like 4 passages from the Bible. I don't care if you agree with the Bible one way or another. I don't care about religion. I care about what is logical and rational and true. And there are many, countless aspects of the Bible that are logical, rational, and genuine metaphysics. Whether you agree with it or not, I don't care. But, I mean, this application is actually heretical to what the Bible teaches, not to mention of which the fact that it's $60 a year, which, according to John 2, is absolute blasphemy. One of the co-creators of this was a former atheist, which doesn't matter, but it is a Black Mirror summoning application that, whether it's free or $60, of course, is slightly important, but ultimately unimportant. It is a summoning device to add weight to constructive interference of not that which is good, but that which is evil. You know, when you feed... There's like a movie about some sort of dark creature that lives in the basement of this house, and you know the only reason why it persists is because people keep feeding it. And like one family member doesn't know the other family member is feeding it, and they keep feeding it. It's like if you feed it too much, it's going to get too big, and it's going to wreak havoc and rah, 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 you know. Everybody's feeding this, you know, this dark entity in the basement. They've never seen it, but they know it's there, and they could hear it, you know, nom, 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 nom. Every time they throw food down the basement, here you go. It's not funny at all. But that's essentially what this app is. And let me get onto this and talk about a device that's actually sold on Amazon. It's the exact same thing. I mean, it's undeniably pure evil. App contradiction in the Bible. Jesus said, pray in private, for example, not on an app, like these Pharisees do for all to see. That's Matthew 6, 5-6. You cannot pray. The application is also too designed, and it doesn't matter what faith you are. I mean, hey, everybody's money is good. You know, you want to pray on this app, you don't have to be a Christian. That's okay. Which I don't care about, honestly, personally. But you're not supposed to pray with people you're not united to in sound doctrine. That's 1 Corinthians 1:10. The fact that you have to pay for it is 100% absolute, undeniable heresy and blasphemy, according to John 2. It also, too, this application teaches lectio divina. You can look that up, too. It's called lectio divina, which is not only not biblical. It's like, well, you don't find that in the Bible. That doesn't mean it's not evil just because it ain't found in the Bible. You don't hear about computers in the Bible either. It's not only not found in the Bible, it's considered heretical relative to any translation of the Bible there. You can go on and on. This application is a scrying device that you pay for, that you're actually feeding the summoning of evil. People are literally praying into the black. You thought people using a black mirror was bad, and of course that video of mine was incredibly popular about black mirrors. Well, this is an application you pay, and it's no different than something else I'm about to talk about, which they sell on Amazon. I'm about to get to that. Anyway, this is about the black mirror is about that which is koilos in Greek, as a reference to this app, which is means it's empty or concave. What it really means, of course, is rest. But it's a practice or ritual. It is melite, specifically the Greek word melite. It is not mineme. Theurgy with the divine. Take your pick, divine or God. It is specifically a ritual and a summoning. It is a talisman. You're actually paying for this app. I mean, an application can be a talisman, anything that you focus upon, and you actually pray to. People are praying to black mirror devices, and they want so many people feeding it. Just kind of like that movie where, like, everybody in the household doesn't know everybody else in the household. You know, is feeding the dark creature in the basement. Num, num, num. You know, it gets out of control, and of course, the basis of a good movie. It really wasn't that good of a movie. People are doing that with this application. Not only that, they're paying for it. I mean, do you really think that they spent countless millions of dollars to make a Super Bowl ad about this application? Using a famous Hollywood personality who I will not mention. There's Ouija boards, of course, are evil by definition. They're summoning devices and talismans. They're absolutely no different than any conventional scrying device. Yeah, they're not. Anyway, there's an evil. You can look this up on Amazon, by the way. There's an evil Ouija board. It's called the Holy Spirit board. It's just an Ouija board that's been superficially redesigned, and it says literally on the cover of this box, "You communicate directly with Jesus." That's not funny at all. It's pure evil. Both this app, it's like $22 on Amazon. Both this application, whose name I did not mention, and the evil board, the board for communicating directly with Jesus, are the exact same thing. One's a physical board made out of pressed cardboard and plywood, like plywood chips and cardboard, particle board, I think it is. They're summoning portals and conjuring that uses much constructive not the good kind of constructive interference, the bad kind of constructive interference, using these black scrying devices to feed evil. And they're summoning portals of conjuring. They're talismans. One's an application, the other one's a piece of pressed particle board. I love it, by the way, when atheists, the Ouija board, there's nothing evil, the Ouija board. It's just a piece of, the planchette's made out of injection molded plastic, which is true. Just a piece of injection molded plastic and some particle board. It can't be evil. That's true. Just as I don't have a sharp-edged instrument here on the table. I mean, that by itself is completely innocent. But if you use it, it's not funny at all. It is evil. Of course, the Ouija board is itself not evil, but using it as a focus, it is evil. It is a scrying device. What is the case, and evil is really, really, really clever, and I'm going to give you a really old quote, which is, "Evil works its best magic through well-meaning fools." Let me repeat that so you can remember it. Evil works its best magic through well-meaning, well-intentioned, really, well-intentioned fools. Evil people. It's like, instead of like selling all these Ouija boards, like, that company I'm not going to name, you know exactly what company it is. What we're going to do is we're going to have an application anybody can download. We'll charge them for it because, we got to make money. That way we got more money, we can spread more evil. But we'll use it as a, this reminds me of the first Hellboy where they not literally, it's kind of allegorical, where, they open up a portal and, they have all the best intentions and, evil pours through it and all chaos and havoc is wrecked. Except they know what they're doing with this application. Even though I was laughing during part of that, it's just so evil, it's funny. And the fact that, these well-intentioned fools are promoting this stuff is absolutely evil. That app is no different than a scrying orb. I don't know if you know what a scrying orb is, but it's a crystal ball. Yeah, I don't know if you know what a scrying is, but you could go look that up. Evil is at the top, and it's siphoning off your will. People have no idea the power that they actually have in their will. They either sublimate it to themselves and that which is divine and holy, and give it to God. Take your pick: God, the divine, the absolute, the agathon, and the Greek term Brahman in ancient Pali, which I've been translating now for over 25 years. I don't care which one you pick. You're supposed to return that to God, which belongs to God, i.e. your spirit. Your spirit, of course, is a misnomer because your spirit implies one thing, has another, i.e. possession. But for sake of parlance and English discussion, I will say your spirit. People have no idea, and this is a matter for a much longer discussion, talking about will of power. One example of that is, and of course we provided a lot of military hardware to the Afghanis, but the Afghanis, with merely will of power and belief and faith, repelled the Soviet military. It wasn't just the military hardware that we gave them. Even if we gave them no military hardware, the Soviet military would have financially collapsed and the Afghan war would have just been more drawn out for who knows how long, a decade, possibly 2 decades. I doubt that long, actually. People have no idea what the sheer will to power is. Well, it doesn't mean anything. I can't see it, and I could put it under a microscope. These are the same people that think these Black Mirror devices are innocent. They're just harmless, you know. My son's just playing with... That is how The Exorcist movie, which is based in a true story, except it wasn't actually in New York. It's in St. Louis, Missouri. And it was a innocent young autistic kid who spent countless hundreds of hours with El Ouija board. And he opened up a portal, and the portal's still open. They couldn't sell the house. It was listed on Zillow. I looked at it like every year. Can't sell it, can't sell it. Finally, you know, they gave up on selling it, and I had no idea what they sold it for, but probably the people got it really cheap. A group of ghost hunter people bought it. It's like, you know, this is a real exorcist house. Everybody that lives around that is like, that house is pure evil. No one's lived there for 15, 20 years. They still hear stuff moving around inside of it. The neighbor's like, yeah, I hear stuff in there all the time. There's nobody in there. It's not rats and squirrels. These devices are evil, and evil is quite brilliant. I don't care what religion or faith you follow, but evil is brilliant. It's like, what if instead of like selling something, we could just have a digital app people could download? And they could use they could pray directly into this device and create constructive interference and feed evil itself. If you get enough collective wills bow and sublimate, there's a great word, sublimate their will to something, you can summon something quite powerful. Except in this case, the power we're talking about is not good, rather the inverse of that which is good and noble and pure and rest. Once again, evil, by definition, is perpetual agitation. Heaven is rest. There is a lot of metaphysics and faith and rationality behind not feeding that which is destructive, that which is dark, the cold cathode effect that feeds off of it. It doesn't care if you're angry at it, you're fearful of it, you're focusing on it, you're summoning it, you're trying to desummon it or repel it. It feeds off that constructive interference. This has everything to do with rationality of sympathetic resonance and constructive and destructive interference. Of spirit, of will, of nous. Take your pick, Greek, Latin, English, Pali, Sanskrit, I don't care. It's all a reference to the exact same thing. A lot of, unfortunately, well-meaning people say, well, this has got to be good. I could use this application to pray to it. I'm going to put up my Black Mirror device, and I'm going to pay good money for something that is 100% free and should always be 100% free and should be done in private. And people are going to say in this video that what I've been talking about, sure, you mean people are actually feeding into something consciously and feeding a dark entity through this application. That's the question I'm going to get asked, and the answer to that is absolutely yes. Now, that is the case, and that's not my opinion, that's a fact. The rationality and logic of genuine metaphysics is hyper-rational. It's not, crazy helter-skelter sort of kookiness. Like, well, this doesn't make any sense. Any sort of religious text typically. It's like, well, you don't have to make sense out of it. You just have to believe it. There's a lot of power in belief and sublimation of spirit. A lot of power. You could create any sort of craziness, and there's all sorts of craziness that's been created that people believe in. And it's not about whether the craziness is true or not. It's about sublimating your will and spirit to that. Are you feeding into something pure? No, you're feeding into something evil. 9 times out of 10. I'm not saying every time, but most of the time you are. Tell me what you think. I read every comment. Lux e veritas. If you ever want to contact me, click the link below. Any donations always warmly welcome. Or send me an email. Tell me how much you hated the video. Whatever makes you happy. I still read every comment. I'm going to eat you right now, Mr. Grapefruit. I love pink grapefruit.